The other big story that we have going today is a follow-up to the news from yesterday that Skylar Thompson was going to be out for the year. That is Chris Klieman being asked today about Skylar Thompson's future plans. Does he want to come back for a sixth year next year? And as of right now, Chris Klieman still has not had that conversation.
Have not talked to him about it at all, so I'm not sure.
A situation where you guys would welcome him back if that's what
Well, we'll have a conversation like we will with every senior, and that's something that we know has got to happen, sooner rather than later at some spots. And it's once again we're just getting into an open week where we have had no time, and now that's something that we'll look at, not just with Skylar, but there's a number of players just in general. What's our thought? What's the young man's thought?
All right, so that actually was surprising to me a bit. Not surprised that they don't know for sure what Skylar's plans are, but I was surprised that when given the opportunity there to say, hey, we would welcome him back, that the answer wasn't just yes right off the bat. We also spoke with Colin Klein today, who obviously is the quarterback's coach, and he was asked same question. Would you guys take Skylar Thompson back right now for next year?
Right now, I mean, it's about him getting healthy and us finishing this season strong, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It's a little ways down the road. So,
all right. Well, that's the approach. That is, if you are doing this from the standpoint of what is best for the program, what is the absolute best thing to do, then that would be the right approach. Hey, let's wait and see how the rest of this year shakes out. Let's make these evaluations later on down the road when we have a better picture for what the quarterback situation is going to be like next year. We have Will Howard playing right now, and depending on how things go the rest of this year, we may feel differently at the end of the season about what our needs are at quarterback next year than we do right now. I am surprised that that was the answer because they have been so all in on Skylar, and there's so much about having it be a player's program that I just can't imagine them really turning Skylar away if he is wanting to come back. If he really badly, truly wants to come back, I have a hard time imagining them turning him away and just shutting the door in his face. So I would have thought then that would necessitate an answer today of like, yeah, if he wants to come back, we'll have him back. So that's where I stand on this. I'm surprised that was the answer, but if you are a fan and you're somebody that wants the best for the program, I do think that is the best response to have right now. I think that's the best approach to have, assuming that is legitimately where they're at, and there are going to be legitimate conversations about it as the season goes along.
On the outside looking in, if you're somebody that doesn't know exactly how this all works, it's a lot more than Coach Klieman pulling Skylar to the side and say, hey, once you get better, you coming back next year? You're going to play football with us again? It's a lot more complicated than that, I can guarantee you, because even when COVID is not taking place and a blanket waiver isn't taking place where you can roll over your eligibility to the next year, it doesn't count for this year. It maybe not happen in football as much, but in sports that have more stricter restrictions on scholarships, sometimes coaches have to have really difficult conversations with their student athletes about, hey, and Skylar doesn't fall in this category where, hey, you're not producing as much. We gave you this full ride, and you're just not giving us what we expected from you. And I mean, sometimes there's talks about transferring, and that's just the way it goes because coaches want those scholarships open for people that they can fill those shoes and be the future of that program. But Skylar's a different story because he's been the starting quarterback for off and on for 4 years now, and it's to the point where K-State really has to take in consideration what is best for the future.
Which is a difficult thing to reconcile right now. It's a difficult thing to parse out and figure out what the answer is. Because, I mean, I will admit I am torn on that. That's why I think the right answer for right now is exactly what was said there. We just don't know right now. There are things that we need to figure out, and there are conversations, like you're saying, Mitch, the long, nuanced conversations that will need to be had across the board, by the way. And Klieman, that's not even just coach speak saying, hey, there are other positions where we need to worry about that too. Because that's absolutely true. I mean, even, I'm thinking like guys like A.J. Parker. great defensive back, and I think you'd probably take him back, right, if he wanted to come back, but you do have a lot of really good younger defensive backs waiting in the wings too, and it's a pretty crowded defensive backfield right now, and I go back to, as it relates to the quarterbacks here, the Alex Smith discussion that we had. And I was reading Ian Boyd from Inside Texas, who does just a great job at analyzing Big 12 football. And he is a pretty big Skylar Thompson fan, but he spelled it out basically in the terms of Skylar being Alex Smith, where it's like he said the thing that makes Skylar Thompson such an effective quarterback is his smarts and his overall understanding of the scheme and what K-State is trying to do schematically, combined with a decent arm and the ability to run when a play breaks down and get into scramble mode and use his athleticism to move the chains. Now, that's a pretty accurate description of what Skylar Thompson is. And what that sounds like to me is a really good game manager. And that's what Alex Smith was, a really good game manager. Decent enough arm, made plays with his legs when things broke down, really smart, knew the scheme, knew the offense. Okay, so the problem then becomes, what's the ceiling with a quarterback like that? And do you then want to stunt the growth of a Will Howard if you think Will Howard is more Patrick Mahomes than he is Alex Smith? Which I do think that the ceiling is higher for Will Howard than it is for Skylar Thompson throughout the entirety of his career, just based on size and skill set and arm talent. I do believe that. Jake Rubley, just from recruiting pedigree, I would believe that too, even though I'll be honest, I just have not. I've seen some highlights, but I can't profess to really know about Jake Rubley. But you'd have two of those guys coming in next year. So how do you reconcile what your needs are that year versus the needs of the future of the program and what you're ultimately trying to do? Klieman said he's in it for the long haul. Those are very deep, detailed, nuanced conversations that, I don't know what exactly the answer is to that. And some of it would absolutely depend on what I see out of Will Howard the rest of this year. Am I seeing signs that Howard is likely going to play well enough the rest of this year that by the end of the year I would say, yeah, I think the best thing would be to continue to let him play and develop? Yes, I am. But he still has to go out and prove that over the course of the rest of the season. And freshmen sometimes hit walls. And so if he hits a wall and it looks like, hey, it really would take some more time for him to be totally ready, then okay, maybe you say best move here would be to take your Alex Smith for another year in Skylar Thompson. And I did see Pro Football Focus had him as the 6th highest graded Power 5 quarterback in football. That was what they put on their graphic, that he is the 6th highest graded Power 5 quarterback in football. And that's not just last year he drew all that praise for being number 1 through 3 weeks when it was playing nobodies. This isn't playing nobodies. It's been a little bit better than that. I mean, Oklahoma was included in that. So clearly he's a more effective quarterback than he gets credit for from a lot of places. But it still is a very complex answer. And so the correct approach right now would be to say, it's like changing your Facebook relationship status, right? With Skylar, it's complicated right now. It's complicated. It's not in a relationship. It's not single. It's complicated. And so that's the right answer today from Klieman. I'm just surprised that it came out.